I got my Star Destroyer interior.
Nice. I'm recording.
Welcome to the Jabbering Jawas podcast with your host, Joey Clark, and
Will, the Thrill, Stafford.
Or as we go by around here, Joey One Kenobi and Will Sith, and we have a very special guest today, my good friend, Noah.
Hello. Or hello there.
Yes.
Doing my shit. Well, by the way, any Padawan, since I already screwed it up, under the age of 18, if you are listening to this, either put your earbuds in around your parents, or if your parents are cool, man, keep listening. Don't listen. Please listen, because we need it. So yeah. It's been a few weeks since we've talked about Return of the Jedi, and got to finish out this Skywalker saga, as they call it, with reviews and shit. As painful as it might be, but today we're going to be talking about The Force Awakens, the least painful, I think, out of all the sequels. Yeah, so I mean, let's start off with what was your first reaction, like when you first saw the film?
When you first saw it, or like the lead up, or like
Very first time ever.
time ever? I mean, I thought it was awesome. It's like new Star Wars after shit. How long was it? Like 11.
10 years.
After like 10 years, I was like, oh fuck yeah, this is great. And yeah, it's just one of those things where you first come out of it and you're like, this is amazing. Like, Star Wars is back. Everybody loves it. Yeah, and then you go on the internet and you're like, wait, okay, maybe not everybody. But at that point, it was like, I feel like it was more people liked it than didn't like it, you know? And I definitely like really liked it, and I was like, this is cool. It was a lot like the first, like A New Hope or something, but I guess different characters, all this stuff, it was fine. It was good. If you're going to follow a movie, you might as well follow A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back or whatever, but yeah, when I first got out of there, I was like, yeah, I like that. This has great potential. These next two movies are going to be even better. So, yeah, that's basically what I thought.
No.
So when I first watched Force Awakens, I was back in college, and it was like midnight. My friends and I, we all decided to go, and it was funny because one of my friends accidentally got a ticket to another theater. We were all separated. We were like, oh no. So we're just like, oh shit, oh well, we're just going to go watch it and see. I stood in line for like 2 hours just to get inside, and then half an hour to sit down and wait. And midnight it played, and I stayed till like 2 a.m. And then I was dead tired because I came home that day to come home for Christmas break, but I couldn't sleep all night. I was just like, Star Wars is back. Holy shit. It went so quick, because I know, when you first watch a movie, you're like, I have to watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think Force Awakens, next to Rogue One, was one of the Star Wars movies out of the new ones that I watched the most. I think I watched that one 5 times in theaters.
I watched it 4 times.
I think I watched it 4 times as well. Yeah, the one that I watched the most was, I think, Solo, but only because people kept wanting to go see it. And I'm like, I guess it's Star Wars and I have Movie Pass, so why the fuck not? Yeah, Solo's not my favorite out of all the new ones by far. The one that I loved the most, I probably saw the least, which was probably Rogue One. I think I only saw it maybe 2 or 3 times. But now for me, when I went to go see it, as soon as I heard even Disney buying Lucasfilm, I was super hyped because there's going to be new movies. And I think The Force Awakens totally delivered. And there's a lot of good things about the movie. There's very few negative things I have to really say about it. But as we all know, it's like what comes up must come down. So it's kind of it's painful to rewatch it, because it's like, nothing really all that good is gonna follow it. So it's kind of like it just teases you, and then like there's no payoff. Like that's how I feel every time I watch that movie. It's like it just kind of sucks for me because I mean, Will, like you like Attack of the, or you don't like Attack of the Clones, but you know Revenge of the Sith is coming afterward. I got
Yeah.
Force Awakens and I love it, but nothing good is coming after it, really. So it's like it's hard to rewatch these for this thing because it's like, okay, great character setups and everything, but they're just gonna fucking crash it into a wall. So, eh. But
Yeah.
when I first saw it, I definitely loved it. I saw it opening night. I dressed up like Han Solo, and yeah, it did take me a while because I kept like, I was in my seat just analyzing everything. I'm like, this is cool. This seems like Star Wars. I was like that for like the first 30 minutes of the film, and then I could finally just kind of relax once they got to Han and Chewie.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, when I first watched it, and I came out of there, and like in my mind, I was like, oh yeah, like it was good. It wasn't great, but we can only go up from here. Like the next two are gonna be even better. This is gonna be an awesome trilogy. So that those were my initial thoughts. And like I said, I saw it 4 times, but between that, obviously, I'd go on the internet, talk to people, and they're like this certain like kind of, I feel like minority of people with Force Awakens who didn't like it because they're like, oh, it followed same basic formula as A New Hope and all that stuff. Like they didn't like some of the characters, whatever. And then obviously there's the very small sect of people who just didn't like it because there was like a woman or a black guy or whatever. But those are kind of the people you ignore, so it's whatever. I was like, all right, well. But I was convinced that like, oh, whatever this next one's gonna be, episode 8, it's gonna be amazing. Like, let's go. And yeah, we all know that didn't end up happening. It got more divisive. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the good thing about Force Awakens was that, like you said, there wasn't a whole lot of people hating on it. Like, I felt like the fandom was like rejuvenated. Like, we got this new Star Wars movie. By and large, I mean, you could say like it definitely followed A New Hope's like kind of formula, and I get that. I think from a standpoint, I kind of understand why they did it, just to kind of tread lightly, because I think they thought that a lot of prequels, that people kind of hated them, and to a degree that was true. I think for that mindset at the time. I know that I wasn't the biggest fan of them for a while, but I think after watching like Clone Wars, I liked it more. I appreciated them more, especially after getting shittier films. Um, so I think they were just trying to play it safe a bit, which is understandable because there's a lot of pressure to bring, Star Wars back. This is the first, film under Disney. So I get a little bit paint by numbers, but I thought it was original enough for it to stand on its own. And I think Rey honestly has the best character introduction of all time. It's just set up so perfectly, and it's all really done with music and just showing, not telling, which is what we strive to do as filmmakers. And I think probably one of the best character introductions in history. And it's sad because of what ultimately ends up happening to her, because I think she, along with the rest of the characters in that film, have really good setups. So it's heartbreaking, but it's also really good, I think, what JJ did. Noah, you got any thoughts on that one?
I remember watching The Force Awakens. Like I said, it takes like a few times for me to really process. When I was a kid, I watched the prequels. Like those were my stars. Even though my dad introduced me to episode 4, 5, and 6, VHS, I was like really little. And I'm like, okay, R2, 3PO, lightsabers, Obi-Wan, and fighting, and Jabba, and everything. But the prequels were the ones I was like, I remember the most at theaters. And I was like 9 years old. I didn't know. I'm like, Star Wars, it's Star Wars. And then going through the motions years later, how we grew with social media, the internet, talking to my friends, like, oh yeah, I like it. And they're all like, you like the prequels? I'm like, well, yeah, I grew up on Star Wars. And I'll be honest, I kind of got shit for it some days, to where I didn't talk about it for a while because I love episode 3. That's my favorite Star Wars film of probably all time. The originals I always near and dear to my heart. So going to The Force Awakens thinking, okay, Disney bought it. They're not doing Legends. They're not going to follow that storyline. I'm like, okay, how are you going to play it? What are you going to do? So going in there with my expectations, thinking, okay, maybe they'll follow along some ideas, maybe not. And watching it, like the first 10 minutes of it, I'm like, okay, that's like Darth Vader going inside the 10 to 4, Stormtroopers are wrecking shit. And it's funny seeing humor in that. Like, there's been a little bit of humor throughout all the movies, but it wasn't really like, hey, it's right there with Poe and Kylo. I mean, I like that scene now. I'm just like, this is okay. Poe's just being a smartass. She's like, so who talks first? You talk first? I talk first? He's just like, I don't give a shit. I'm a pilot. Yeah, I'm going up against a Sith Lord, as he thought. And Kylo's just like, I'm not taking this shit. Get him out of here. So just thinking that, it's like, oh, this is a new era of Star Wars for a newer generation.
Yeah.
So as I more digest The Force Awakens, watching it over and over, I know my mind is like, this isn't like what I grew up with, but I know times change with, again, social media nowadays. It's amazing how it's like, Disney's like, how can we reach out to newer kids, but still reach out to regular old fans of the prequels and then the originals? And safe to say, The Force Awakens was like the most safest of all of them. Because JJ, he did lead up to like, oh yeah, there's some similarities. Droid with a plan, has to go find a Jedi, has to stop a big giant weapon in space, and then hero fight scene, and introducing villains and space battles, which I know it wasn't really in space, but it was really fun, entertaining. So it was just really interesting how the cliffhanger was left. And again, as a standalone by itself, The Force Awakens, it's my most favorite and most fun to watch out of the others. As a Connect, I do see the problem where it's like, okay, JJ's like, all right, here's my story. I'm done. Give it to Ryan Johnson, which I watch again, Last Jedi, and then watching because I watched Knives Out before, which great movie, but this is Star Wars. It was very disjointed, and it sucks because honestly, sorry to call out Disney, it's like there was no plan. They're just like here. So whereas the opposite of Lucas, he's like, I have a story, but my directing was not great. So that's why everyone gave shit. So it's like, okay, Disney did great with visuals and original characters, originals. And then, oh, we got the regular creatures, but we're just like, meh, I don't know. And then Lucas was the opposite. So it's like, almost like that thing, quantity over quality. What do you want?
Yeah. That's Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm coining the phrase of broken record, where it's like, even the actors now are like, they had no fucking plan. Like, even with Daisy Ridley, like we talked about, it's like literally admitting, like, oh yeah, we changed her lineage while filming The Rise of Skywalker. Like, the one key element to this whole thing, and you're still fucking changing it up until the very end. And I don't blame JJ. I don't even blame Ryan. You gotta blame them, because you have to think your multi-billion-dollar franchise is on the line, and you are not gonna fucking take the time to plan it. Like, what kind of? It's fucking stupid. Like, if I had a multi-billion-dollar franchise, I'd want to map out the story, allow things to be able to change, but ultimately fit within this realm. And I said it on the podcast last week. I think a lot of people are like defending them doing that because, well, George didn't have a plan. Well, here's the thing. George Lucas was only planning to make one of these fucking things, and it was essentially an indie film, and everything was against him. Yet he created this beautiful thing with all odds against him. Studio was against him. Cast and crew were against him. Time and money were against him. But the motherfucker did it all on his own. And then what did he do for the prequels? He planned the whole fucking thing out. Execution might be a little shaky, but it's at least a cohesive storyline. Disney, you are a multi-billion-dollar corporation. If you don't have the resources to do it, then nobody has the fucking resources to do it. So there is no excuse. All these fucking bands like trying to defend it. It's stupid. I get people who love it, and God bless them, because I wish I could. But you can't defend bullshit with bullshit. There's nothing to defend then. They fucked up. And what they need to do is realize they did that and shape a new path. Am I Disney? No. Hopefully one day, willing, me, Will, and hopefully you, we get to work on Star Wars. I know it's not fucking easy. That's why we're not doing it. But it's like, I get that it's not easy, but you can't fuck up this badly when you have billions of dollars on the line. You just can't.
Yeah, there's no excuse for a multi-billion-dollar company, as well as somebody who they acquired Lucasfilm and did all this stuff. They got all these properties, and then like you said, Kathy Kennedy said that they didn't have any source material to work with, and it's like, yes, you did. You made it all legends, and then you didn't use any of it. And it's like, all you have to do is just look over to Marvel, and it's like, take the stories that people already love and just turn that into film. I mean, I know some of the stuff's a little outdated, like, the books that were made like in the 80s, like, you can update them a little bit, like, I understand that, but it was still like good stories overall, so I'm just, yeah, that still upsets me. And I mean, I guess we're kind of talking about the bad things right now, but we're kind of talking about overall. That last part of the movie, I think that's the one mistake in this that JJ made, that I think that's on him, is leaving it on a cliffhanger. Because Star Wars movies just don't do that. They give you some kind of like wrap up at the end, of a movie for the most part. Like, I guess there's some cliffhangers, but just leaving it like literally like, oh, here's her showing up and then like seeing Luke, and then the next movie basically has to kind of like start like that. I mean, it didn't have to, but it was just kind of an awkward thing. And I think that was just a weird choice, but it's fine, I guess. Because I remember watching that movie when I first went there. There's something I totally forgot. I was waiting for Luke the entire time. I was like, okay, where's Luke now? All right, where's Luke? Can we see Luke? Are we going to hear Luke speak? And then we didn't get to hear Luke speak at all. We just saw him stand there. So I remember leaving the theater, and that was kind of disappointing, because I'm like, wow, we didn't even get to hear Mark Hamill say anything? Okay. Like, are they going to...
But he still got paid $1 million or however much somehow just to turn around,
to
take
turn
off
around.
a hood. Like, damn, what do I got to do to do that? Turn around, take off a hood, be like, all right, money.
Got to play an amazing character for years and years, man.
It was
like, damn. Yeah, that's crazy.
I think I read somewhere that was kind of funny. Mark Hamill was all like, oh, I was so excited to come back. And when he got the script, they were reading. And he's like, where's my dialogue? And then they said, oh, you don't have any. What? Excuse me? And he's like, wait a minute. So I had to go work out, kind of slim down a bit. He's old, he ages. We all do. It's funny reading this. I went to go get slim down, get in shape, grow a beard, look good. I don't speak. It'll be a setup for episode 8. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
But you're still coming in. You're getting paid. He's like, all right. Well, so. And he was able to do the table read. I know, like, the behind the scenes of The Force Awakens, which I love all those. Like, episode 7, 8, 9, I love watching all the behind the scenes stuff. Like, I know, like, again, we're going bad to good with the whole thing with Disney, like, no cohesive story. I do see there is passion behind each director, each person working on it. So it's like, you can't yell at the artist. You really can't. And as an artist myself, seeing JJ like, okay, this is what I want to do, and we're doing the behind the scenes talking, and then, John Boyega, Adam Driver, Daisy, Oscar Isaac, all the people just talking on set saying, this is so fun, this is so surreal. And it's like, I can see JJ does have like the love and soul. He's like, I want to do this. I want to make George proud. I want to make fans proud, Disney proud, Lucasfilm proud, Kathleen proud, whatever. And episode 8, same thing. Rian Johnson, he did his own thing, and just seeing how that happens, that to me, that brings like the magic, as you say, like Disney shows, the magic behind the scenes of all the filmmaking. So it's really cool watching all that, and then like seeing the behind the scenes of like making the creatures. I love that. Neil Scallion, I want to say his name is, making all the new Star Wars aliens.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say that a lot of the practical stuff they did in like pretty much all these movies, it was really good. I will say that. I wish they would have been implemented better at times, but it's really cool. Like a lot of things they did, like they had that was Simon Pegg as Uncle
On car plot.
Flunk. Yes, thank you. Yeah, as that. And like that, that's really cool to know that. Like, I like when they do cameos like that. Like they had Daniel Craig in there, and he was like in a stormtrooper helmet. So it's like it's cool because you don't know that it's them. Whereas like there's some shows or movies that'll be like, hey, let's just throw like fucking what was that Game of Thrones threw fucking
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran in there, and I'm just like, what? No, don't do that. Like, yeah, don't do stuff like that. Like if they're behind like a helmet or something like that's fine. You know, if you can't tell who they are, like cool. And because that's the thing about Star Wars is about like kind of taking. There's of course known actors, but it's about taking a lot of unknown actors and kind of putting them in the spotlight. And even though like we said, the prequels weren't directed as well as they could, there's still a lot of like really cool, actors and actresses on there who are a lot bigger now. It's actually pretty hilarious. My mom texted me today and she said, "Oh my God, did you know that Keira Knightley was in Phantom Menace?" I'm like, "Yeah, yes, I did." We talked about that on the podcast. Yeah, and Keira Knightley, I think we talked about that too. Keira Knightley didn't even remember what character she was. She's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, the Star Wars is just that's what it's for. It's like you have these awesome actors who, like we said, they kind of at times will carry they'll carry Star Wars, in certain movies. But it's about those those young actors, like kind of unknown actors, kind of getting seen and like just doing some incredible things. And I think, in my opinion, this is like probably the best batch of actors in general that there's been in Star Wars movies. So I think that, like we always say, it's just more disappointing that they didn't come out as well with like this group of actors. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and that's you both pretty much nailed nearly everything I was gonna say. It is just kind of disappointing overall, where it's like everything was set up perfectly. You had this solid foundation, and like I said, I don't blame Ryan. I don't blame JJ. You have to blame. It's like you don't blame the kid for running around with scissors when their parents gave them scissors, like, and didn't teach him anything. Or it's like Kathleen Kennedy don't know shit about Star Wars, and that's evident. She doesn't know what the fans want. She doesn't know fucking anything about it, which is the weird thing to me. Why this all seems really screwy and fucked up is that before Star Wars, pretty much anything she touched beforehand was gold. She is an awesome producer and one of the best, and will go down in Hollywood history that way. However, I don't get how the switch to becoming the president of Lucasfilm fucks you up, because you have all this experience and you know what to do. So I don't get where the disconnect is. If you don't understand something, you're best friends with George Lucas. Utilize the man. He knows. He created the damn thing. Utilize his protege, Dave Filoni. Like, you have these resources at your hands, and consult people. Make your directors do it. You are the producer. You are the final say. You're the one that writes the motherfucking checks. Like, you have the power of the purse. You have the ability to do this. So I don't know if it was just like, oh, The Force Awakens great, so, and we didn't really plan anything and it was okay, so we're just gonna keep going this way. I don't know. I
Probably
want
made
that
2
mindset.
billion. They made over 2 billion.
It made over 2 billion, but then there was a drop off with Last Jedi, which is expected. But then the third film in the franchise only made $1 billion. If you made everything and planned it out perfectly, I'm not saying it could have made Endgame money, but you could have made way more money. Like, you could have probably doubled it if Last Jedi was great.
They probably could have made in-game money because I mean it's also Disney. So the fact that they didn't just shows how it wasn't like up to snuff. Like of course 1.1 billion isn't anything like to sneeze at or anything. Like that's a lot of fucking money, but I mean it went down every single time. It went way down after Force Awakens. So yeah.
And I kind of expected that because it's like it's bringing back Star Wars, so I get why it goes from 2 to like 1 point. I think it was 5, so it's still good.
Mhm.
Uh, but to have the last one only make a bill, and I know it sounds crazy because it's still profitable, but it's like if you would have made it really good, you could have probably nearly doubled that figure.
Mhm. And like Noah was saying here, this is like a different time with social media and everything. You know that Disney sees everything that people are saying out here. You know they see all of this. I mean, sure, there's people commenting on Disney right now at this moment under some tweet about something that has nothing to do with Star Wars, about you ruined Star Wars or something. Like there's somebody out there, you know. So they know, like that it was disappointing for a lot of people.
And I think the other thing too is a lot of people want to say, oh, but we're like the minority of fans. Like we are like a few that really care. Well, it's like, here's the thing. I get it. My best friend, John, loved The Rise of Skywalker. And the reason he probably loved The Rise of Skywalker was because he's the average moviegoer. And that makes sense for him. I loved it the first time too I saw it. But you know what? The hardcore fans see it at least a couple of times in the theater. More box office sales for you guys. And guess what else hardcore fans do? We buy your fucking merch, and we spend more money than just the theater ticket. I can bet you right now I have at least a few $1,000s worth of Star Wars shit in my apartment, if not more.
To say that loud, they're gonna break in.
Does that mean that you cater to me? Does that mean that you're supposed to make films that I will like and enjoy? Fuck yes, it does. And anyone that says that it's entitlement, that's bullshit. Because you know why? If you are a consumer, you are allowed, and you should, criticize the product quality. If it is not up to your standard, then criticize it because it won't get better unless you do. Do it constructively. Like, I'm not going to say, you're a bunch of dumb cunts. No, it's just like, come on. We've been telling you guys this stuff. You know who listens? Dave Filoni, Favreau, but they don't do it to be pandering. They hear what's happening. They know that they're not going to make something that everyone's going to love because no one can love everything. But they will make something that fits a storyline, that fits the Star Wars formula, but is also really cool and enjoyable. And then we get Clone Wars and Rebels and The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Now that we have shown the sequel trilogy as a whole, let's talk about this movie. Like from beginning to end.
Circle it back.
Yeah, I just thought about that. I'm like, let's talk about one movie, right? Okay. Yeah, so Force Awakens. I guess we'll start with the beginning. Like you said, the character introductions are good. I will say when I first saw this movie, the one thing that kind of threw me off was, and I think we already talked about this before, but kind of the overall, the look and the lighting and everything it's pretty different. Like the stormtroopers in the dark and like all the flashing going on. It was very J.J. Abrams, obviously. That's kind of like, his style. So I was like, oh god, is this gonna be more J.J. Abrams or more Star Wars? And then
Lens flare.
It ended up being more Star Wars, but it was fine. As just at first, I was like, oh god, I don't know what's going on here. But I definitely ended up liking that first scene overall. But yeah, that's something that when I first saw that was kind of stood out to me. I'm like, interesting lighting and like color grading going on here. So that kind of threw me off the first time, I would say, when I watched it.
No, you want to go?
When I first watched it, I know like what Will was saying. It's like how when I heard J.J. Abrams did it, I did watch his Star Trek movie, and I think I watched Super 8 also. Like good movies. I'm not a Star Trek guy. I don't know anything, but watching it, I'm just like, why am I blind? I'm like, everything it's so bright. Oh, lens flare. And I was like, oh, geez, he's doing Force Awakens, Star Wars, no lens flare. I think I only counted 2 times.
Yeah.
One scene when Poe and the stormtroopers were walking, and when Kylo freezed the laser bolt, which I love that. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, that was
my jaw dropped when I saw that. And then the second time when Starkiller Base shoots a laser, and it shows like Kylo just standing there, and it's like, phew. Okay, done. Jay just like, all right, I did my little stuff. I'm good. I'm good. But
Yeah.
visually, it is different. Like, again, when I was going back to saying how there was humor in this, and again, like in the first 6 episodes of Star Wars, it was there, but it wasn't. And obviously, Disney and with the Avengers and all them, they throw humor because why not?
Hmm.
And I felt like Force Awakens was the one that the humor landed, and I was like, all right. Han Solo, being snarky, like with him and Finn, he's a Solo, and he's like, did you just call me Solo? I thought that was funny. Excuse me. It's like that's such a Han Solo thing to say. Finn to me was kind of almost like, I don't want to say he was the Solo, but like how snarky he would be. He would just make a quip. And Poe, same too. I actually just watched episode 4 yesterday and thinking about it today. Han Solo was very like snarky. He was like, hey, and he's like, Dustin, it's like flying through hyperspace, not like Dustin Crops, boy. And I'm just like, wow, he just gets at Luke like that. Finn, he's just like, why does everybody want to go back to Jakku? It's like he is us in there. He's like, why? Why
Yeah.
are we doing this? Same with Poe.
Yeah. That's funny you bring that up. And I'm sorry, Joey, do you want to say something real quick, actually,
Oh,
before I go into the next thing? Um, no, it's funny you bring it up because I do love like the humor of Poe in here. Like you said, the line at the beginning when he's like, "You talk, I talk, you talk." Like that shit's hilarious. Or him, especially him, Poe and Finn together. They have some pretty like funny like banter and everything. And then Finn when he meets up with Ray and he's like obviously kind of like into her and he's like, "Do you have a boyfriend on Jakku or something like that?" Like, and that's just funny. Or him like giving a thumbs up to BB-8. He does a little spark thing or whatever. But I will say the scene when they meet Han Solo, I love when they come to the ship and everything. But the one directly after that, with the what's the Conja Club and all that, like I don't love that scene. I always want to kind of get past that scene. Like it was cool seeing like Han and Chewie like fighting all this stuff. But I didn't love those monsters. I forgot what they're called.
Rathars.
Yeah, I didn't love those. It was a very I wouldn't say it wasn't Star Wars. Like I don't think there's anything like any monster thing that's like specifically Star Wars or anything. It's just I don't know. The scene kind of took me out a little bit, and then I don't know. I didn't like the two little groups. Like I don't know what it was, but yeah, that scene I'm not too fond of. But I do like when they first introduce Han and Chewie, of course.
yeah, as far as humor goes, I think you said it best, Noah. This one's probably the one that the humor lands the most out of the sequels. Um, there are some jokes that I don't think hold up because, like, for the most part, I think most of the humor in the original trilogy, like, it still makes me laugh or chuckle. Um, there are things like the Poe Dameron and Kylo Ren. Like, I remember laughing pretty well, like the first couple of times seeing it, but it just kind of doesn't age well for me. Um, but I think for the most part, the humor lands pretty well. The whole thing with Finn and the boyfriend line, that one, I mean, this is just being nitpicky, but that one kind of took me out of it a little bit. And then little pieces of dialogue where, like, Finn saying, like, hell no sounded really weird and out of place. Like, I know that Han Solo says in Empire Strikes Back, like, and we'll see you in hell, but it kind of fits the moment. Like, I don't know if there's just weird little things like that where it does take you out. The same thing with that Raftar thing you were mentioning, where I like the Guavian Death Gang and Conja Club. I think the banter between those two is funny, and Han Solo and like Chewie, and like, when was the second time? And like that's to me the scoundrel that we love and know. So I think they did a great job with that. Um, but yeah, there's just little. It's more nitpicky things, I guess, like certain lines. But I think pretty solid, at least for the first act or so. Most of my problems honestly come later. Once the whole Star Killer base thing happens, that's where my issue lies. Like literally another Death Star kind of had my eyes rolling, and it serves no purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, no, I feel you. Like Trying to think. I mean, you go ahead, Noah. I have a thought. I'm trying to like get into my head.
Okay. I guess I can say like, well, it's not really a spoiler, but I don't know if people like you guys played Fallen Order, correct?
Mhm.
The video game. Okay, so if nobody hasn't, sorry, but spoilers. There's
Spoiler
a
alert.
level. Spoiler alert. Where's the Rogue One sound?
I will put
um,
that in there.
can't copyright. So playing the game Jedi Fallen Order, there's a scene where Cal goes to Ilum, and I just realized there was that scene where it showed Ilum and like the Starkiller base where that whole trench is dug up. I'm like, oh my god, wait, they did it? Because everyone was conspiracy theory thinking, what frozen planet is this? We're like, well, it's not Hoth. Doesn't look like it. Because not every ice planet's the same, which I can say with my nitpick, that is mine a little bit. Like, okay, that planet's a desert planet. Tatooine too, that's what I call it. And then Takodana was the only one I really felt like was different. Takodana and Octo. Those are the ones I was like, all right, a little bit of Endor vibe, a little bit for Takodana until they showed like the ruin area. I'm like, so it's a little mixture of that and of Endor with Yavin 4, but it was different enough for me. And Octo was the most different. But going back to Fallen Order and the planet, I thought that was an interesting thing. Okay, it started, the construction of it started, I think, a few years after Episode 3 when the game takes place. And Palpatine was like, okay, we're going to make this into a giant weapon. So it's like, okay, and then the First Order took over after he died, supposedly died. So just thinking like, wow, First Order picking up after the Empire did to turn a planet into another Death Star. So I find that like, okay, I guess the bad guys really like giant laser weapons. Because I know in Legends, I do a lot of parallels with the sequels and then the Legends book, where they technically almost did another super weapon in I can't remember the name of the book, but it was like after Episode 6 in Legends, where they just basically took the laser beam of the Death Star, like it's like an outer, it's like the inner shell. There was no like dome over it. It was just that laser part. So I'm like, so Death Star 3, except without the Death Star. So even Legends did some kind of dumb things like, why'd you make another one, guys? Why
Yeah.
why did you do that? But I always like to do comparisons, like if we dive into characters with I guess the first one known being is Ben Solo, Ben Skywalker, Jason Solo. Like
Mhm.
definitely Jason and Ben are literally pretty much almost the same.
Yeah.
Even though I know there's more development for the books with him as Darth Kaitis or Sadis, however it's pronounced. And I read a couple Legends books about Jason and Jaina, and then Anakin Solo, Ben Skywalker, and other characters from Legends. I don't know too much about like the offsprings of all of them, but it's really interesting how I think JJ was like, okay, Ben Solo is basically Jason from the Legends,
Yeah.
so it's like he really took a lot of elements from him and put it into Kylo with some angst, more angst than I bargained for.
Yeah. Especially in Force Awakens, he came off as, and I guess we'll talk about Kylo right now because yeah, he came off as kind of like a like emo sort of like teen kind of thing going on. And there were parts of that I really like Kylo in that movie. Like I said, he's one of the better characters I think in the sequel trilogy in general. But yeah, definitely in that first one, he just came off as kind of whiny sometimes, and I was like, okay. But he was fine overall. And yeah, it's funny you say that. I think we might have mentioned that before, but how when the first movie came out, I thought for a fact in my mind, I was like, okay, they're just like Jaina and Jason Solo, so her and Kylo are related, and that was it. I was just like, cool, that's it. They're secret siblings. That's what I first thought, and then I thought that Rey was Kenobi at some point, so I kind of changed between she's a Skywalker or Kenobi. That's all I thought. Um, but yeah, obviously that didn't end up being it. But I do wonder if JJ had plans for that, but then it got changed because there was no actual plan. So I don't know. Like it's
Would
hard
a
to say.
whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
I would like to know like because I know Lawrence Kasdan was the story writer for Force Awakens, which I think that's what made it be like, oh, like really good to me, like because I know he did the originals with 4, 5, and 6. So, and I know he did Solo with his son John Kasdan, like they both collaborated. So, I mean, something happened right there. I know that was between the directors, and then they changed, but I'm
John.
wondering, it's like if oh, you're saying.
Oh well, he did 5 and 6, not 4. But then,
Oh, okay.
and I'm pretty sure for Solo, I'm pretty sure his son fucked that one up with the whole Lando wanting to fuck robots thing, because he was defending it, and I'm like, in no shape or form do you get the hint that he wants to stick his dick in any mechanical thing in episode 5 or 6. Call me picky, but I don't think that's Lando style. But
Yeah, I didn't like that.
It might have been one of those things where his son might have actually just like had most of the ideas and wrote stuff, and then he just kind of also put his name on there, so people would be like, okay, like he helped write it, so it's fine, right? Because yeah, you think that if he wrote Solo, it would have been better, you know? And
well,
definitely the director thing was affected it, but
well,
yeah,
well, the weird thing is, Lawrence Kasdan said he wouldn't come back to help with Force Awakens unless he could write the Han Solo movie. So it makes me wonder. So it's like, so how much of this is yours and your son's? Because this is the movie you wanted to write, and it's not the greatest. It's
yeah,
not
like
bad,
he
but
came for himself or his son.
I feel like his son like just took his draft and went like, I'm gonna play with daddy's toys.
Dad, I have some notes. Okay, so let's just try this. We're gonna throw this in here.
Some
All right,
crazy
trust me.
ones.
This is what the kids want now.
No, it's not. I don't think any little kid is like, I want to watch Lando fall in love with a robot and have sex jokes about fucking said robot. I don't know how many 7-year-olds were like, that's what I need to love Solo.
I guess that's what the son felt. They, I don't know, but yeah, awkward. But yeah, I mean, Force. I forgot where you left off at. So,
I was story. I was saying story.
oh
So
yeah,
I was
story.
like, what I was going to with the story writers like Lawrence Kasdan and JJ. It's like, okay, he's directing, he's writing. So I want to know. It's like, I wonder how much Lawrence like looked at like Legends, because I know George, he was like meh with them, which kind of to me that's kind of like, all right, whatever. I mean, whatever, to each his own. To me, I did read those books as a kid. There's some I was like, I like I just recently finished. I was talking to Joey about this when we would do our lightsaber meetups. I finished the first 3 Thrawns, and it's funny because I first read about Thrawn as him as a kid, but I never touched the books because my brain was like, I can't read. I don't want to read big 200 book pages. And I did audiobook, and I actually read Heir to the Empire, and I loved it. I was like, yo, this guy's crazy. This is wow. So this is what happens. And I think that one's 5 years after episode 6 with Legends. So I'm trying to think like if Lawrence Kasdan went to those Legends, is like, what can we take from here? What can we input in our movies? I know Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni with The Mandalorian, they're doing a lot of it, especially Dave, like with the Clone Wars and then Rebels, a lot of stuff. So I'm pretty sure there is maybe a person on the movie set that is doing it. So I kind of feel like it would be him, like making the connection with Jason and Ben Solo.
Mhm.
And then seeing certain qualities with Rey, kind of almost being like a Jaina, but to me, I'm like, she's the only one that I think that was very original. And
Yeah,
Poe, like
that's what threw
those,
me.
like
That's what
watching
threw
those
me.
guys were like the original characters made.
That's what threw me, and that's what I was like, especially after the scene in Maz's castle when she touches the lightsaber, and literally the last thing she hears is Ben Kenobi's voice. So I'm like, okay, so maybe she's a Kenobi then, because like yeah, there's elements of Jaina, but I'm like, no, not really, like kind of, but not really. So I'm like, maybe she's like, maybe she's an original character, or maybe she's somebody related to somebody else, not a Skywalker. That I was right. Just it wasn't Kenobi. Yeah, I feel like at one point it was, but anyway. Yeah, I'm trying to think. So I like when like Poe and Finn like escape and everything. Like I like the whole scene. The, the thing that like still bothers me when I watch this, like the beginning scene and then like going there, is like two things. Is so first off, there was Kylo Ren like looking at him, and I guess I understand he was like sensing something off about him, but I don't understand why he would care that much. You know what I mean? He's just like a little. And I guess maybe you can go to like the last movie and like maybe he was force sensitive or something. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't get why. And then he remembered him later, like specifically. He's like, oh, that one stormtrooper from the battle. And I'm just like, why would he care or remember?
Hmm.
Like there was that, and then I always get confused about that scene with when Phasma comes in. She's like, "I'll submit your blaster," and all this stuff. And I'm like, is he in trouble or? Because if he was in trouble, like why aren't they watching him? And he just like escapes right after that, you know. So that should always confuse me. I was like, huh.
Yeah,
Like
that's just
nobody's watching him when they're also like apparently suspicious of him. Like nobody stopped. Like, hey, let's watch this guy. Make sure he doesn't do something weird. Or I guess he got in trouble for having his helmet off. I don't know.
yeah. Now that I think about it, she just walked in and she's just like, "Hey, put that
Yeah,
back on, walk away." And I'm like, "All
yeah, I was
right,
wondering what he
whatever."
was in trouble for. But was it for taking his helmet off? Was it because he didn't shoot people? I think maybe Kylo sensed that he didn't like shoot people or something. But I'm like, why was nobody watching this guy if they were apparently all like suspicious of him for some reason? I don't know. Because he escapes right after that, just like nice and easy. Like, okay, let's walk over here.
I will say something that with that confusing you, Will, like something that confused me still today. I mean, again, it was before everything when everything was planned out. When Kylo, when he gets pissed off and he just destroys the whole base, he's like, "Anything else you want to tell me?" And then the Imperial or the First Order officer is like, "They were accompanied by a girl," and he just force chokes him and he just brings him. When he's like, "What's girl?" And I'm like, "Why do you care?"
Yeah,
It's like, why? It's like, ooh, female. Like,
I
are
thought
you really that loner, dude, as a Sith warrior or whatever? And this is before I even knew he wasn't a Sith. He was
when I
just a dark
first
side user.
when I first saw that, I assumed that it was because he knew something about a girl or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
Snoke had told him something about it or something.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that didn't end up being the case. So I was like, yeah, it's an awkward line. It's like
Yeah.
why does it matter if she's a girl or not? And she's with the robot. Like all he cares about is the robot. So like why does he care? It's like, what girl? Like, okay, what about the
Female.
stormtrooper? Like yeah, he's like, what girl?
The female.
Who's a
The
girl?
traitor. The pilot. That's
I
how
will
Kylo
turn
refers
her
to
to the
everybody.
dark side, and then she'll love me. No.
That's how Kylo refers to people. The girl. The pilot. The traitor. Looks at Hux. My bitch.
Pretty much. We'll talk about Hux later, but yeah, yeah. Um, Joey.
As far as things that confuse me, like the biggest thing, honestly, to me is that there was no need for Starkiller Base. Like, there is an objective to every single Star Wars film. Episode 1, Phantom Menace. It's about, you know, getting the occupation on Naboo away. Attack of the Clones, it's figuring out who's pulling the strings, and oh, we have a clone army. Revenge of the Sith, it's figuring out the whole thing. A New Hope, we gotta get the Death Star plans. Empire Strikes Back, and so and so. This whole movie was about finding Luke Skywalker, and then we deviate to find Starkiller Base for some weird reason. It should have been, and if I were rewriting the last section, I think it would have been cool to have like a race between the First Order and the Resistance to find Luke, and then you just see him on Octu. All of a sudden, you see a Star Destroyer come out of hyperspace, and then you see the Resistance come out of hyperspace. So it's like the race to get to him,
Mhm.
and then you just spend a little time with him, him say something. Like that would have been the perfect ending. Like that's a cool cliffhanger. Like the whole point was to get to this old motherfucker. Why is Starkiller Base even a thing? Like that is one thing to me where I don't get why we needed it.
Yeah, yeah, like really, really strange choice, and especially just to do another Death Star-ish thing. Like people already had a problem with the second Death Star in Return of the Jedi. Like people still love Return of the Jedi, but definitely there are people who had a problem with it. Like, this another Jedi, this another Death Star, and then they apparently were just like found a way to like either streamline the building process or they were already in the process of building a second one. I don't know, but yeah, they built that second one pretty fucking fast. When the other one took like apparently all through Clone Wars or something. So yeah, that was a weird choice, and the space battle was not my favorite there. Um, and I will say something, and this is kind of a thing with the sequel trilogy in general. Something that bothered me. You remember in Maz's castle, there's that woman who, like the alien woman on the side, and she like when she sees the droid, and she's like, "Oh, I found the droid you're looking for," or whatever. And I remember before the Force Awakens came out, they had like a picture of that woman or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be an important character in the movie. She's a very important role." And like I don't know why they keep doing that in the sequel trilogy. Like before shit comes out, like they talked about Carrie Russell for Rise of Skywalker. They always talk about that shit before it comes out. She's like, Carrie Russell's gonna be playing an amazingly important character in the movie, like. And then they did it with the Kelly Marie Tran's character, and I think that also kind of didn't help for her. That they like, was it Ryan Johnson? I think specifically said like, "Oh yeah, she's a very important character." Yeah, she really wasn't. So it's like like they kept hyping up these characters and shit, and all that character did in Force Awakens was just go like, "I found these droids, come get them," and I'm like, "Why?" I don't know if it's like a Disney thing or like I don't understand why they like hype up these like kind of random side characters. Like, oh yeah, it's gonna be somebody important. Look at this character. Okay. They even hyped up like, and I will say that it wasn't disappointing or anything, but they hyped up like those guards in the Last Jedi, the Imperial Guard, well, basically Imperial Guards for Snoke.
Oh.
They were actually cool, but yeah. And then of course there's the most hyped of all that did absolutely nothing, fucking Knights of Ren, who see in this movie for like a second, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see them do something. And yeah. And we got like so much about them before the shit came out about how like cool they are and what they do with Kylo Ren, and then we really don't get to see them do anything basically. So yeah.
I will say that is kind of like one of my biggest gripes. Like seeing like, okay, we're not doing like again with social media nowadays, it's like I almost spoil myself, but not really. But because like the information's always out there, they put it out. So when I read up Kylo Ren, I'm like, okay, what is he? Is he a dark side? Is he a Sith? And it's like, oh, he's not a Sith. JJ said he's not a Sith. He's a Dark Warrior. So I'm like, all right. I mean, technically Maul was a Sith apprentice, but he was considered Sith. He got the name Darth. So when I was looking at Kylo, thinking, oh, okay, a Ren. I'm like, okay. And then Knights of Ren. And I'm like, ooh, maybe this is like a new era of the Sith. That's cool. Because I know originally in the Legends, again, comparing, the Sith were still around. Even like one of the comics that I read, even years after Luke is dead, it's like with his ancestor, Cade Skywalker. There's technically a Sith Twi'lek. I forget her name. And then there's like...
Oh, Darth Talon?
Darth Talon, yes. And then there's like some characters that are not Sith, but they're not good guys. They have lightsabers, and there's a special name for them, remnant soldiers or something. So I was saying, okay, maybe we're going this route. They're gonna be, because I read the Kylo Ren comic, the one that was before the Force Awakens, and seeing it's like, okay, they are Force sensitive. And as I rewatch Rise of Skywalker, they did use the Force, but I was a little like, but they never mentioned that in the Force Awakens. They didn't. Okay.
I need to rewatch Rise of Skywalker now.
But. Yeah, it's the very end with Ben and him fighting. Like a couple of them use the Force and like tackle him and beat the shit out of him. But it's kind of like, oh damn, I really want that. I mean, yes, they were very safe. JJ was very safe. It's like you gotta throw a monkey wrench in there, have the Knights of Ren kind of do shit, maybe like go up against Rey or Finn. Well, actually no, Finn would have been knocked out by then. But I will say, like Finn putting up his own fight, going against the Stormtrooper, the Riot Trooper, which I thought that was kind of cool. How the Stormtrooper's like, all right, the Empire fuck with Jedi, and we just shoot and we die. What do we do? And they're like, you're gonna fight him, and that's what made Finn. I'm like, okay, he's great with the lightsaber. I think is he gonna be a Jedi? Yo, this could be crazy. And that made me be like, hype a Stormtrooper as a Jedi. Yo,
Yeah.
I am down for that.
Yeah, that was really cool. Like I like that choice, and I think there was I think it was a little like comic before the Force Awakens came out that kind of explained that Finn was actually really good in the Stormtrooper Academy, but then in that battle he decided not to kill anybody because he just didn't want to. So he actually is like a really good fighter, and I guess he knew that Stormtrooper personally. He was like traitor, and that's another funny thing, right? I feel like in these last two movies there was nothing like that. Like I remember everybody loved that fucking character. They loved the fucking traitor Stormtrooper when he like flipped his little, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's awesome." I feel like there wasn't really much characters like that in like these other two, And that's like the important thing. You need like cool characters that people can kind of latch onto. And we talk about that a lot. Yeah. And I don't know if you have any more bad things to say, but I kind of want to lead like that, what you talked about with Finn, to like a good thing. Did you have any other?
Just to start off, JJ did make Babu Frick. I will say that's like one of the few good things in Rise of Skywalker where I'm Babu Frick. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, good things. Like I said before, honestly, Force Awakens set up these characters amazingly. I would have loved them to have better stories continuing on, but I think all of them have really solid foundations. I think the only one for me, there was two that I was kind of uncertain of. Snoke, because he didn't seem like the ultimate bad guy to me.
Yeah.
And then Kylo, I kind of dipped in and out just because the voice changer voice, it sounded to me like one of those stereotypical like kidnapper voices. So when he had his helmet on, it scared me as much, but it sounded like it got better towards the end. So I was kind of there. But like, I love Poe, I love Finn, I love Rey. BB-8 was cute as fuck, and I didn't mind that there was a new generation of droids because I felt like this little guy could carry it. So yeah, I was pretty happy overall with that. I think mainly any character issues I had, like even bringing back Han Solo and Chewie, like it felt like them. Leia, Carrie Fisher was a little bit rough, but I know it's because she had been out of it for a while. But I thought pretty much all the characters were handled very well, by and large.
I think the one cool misdirect that they did, because you're talking about how Finn used the lightsaber, and like, oh man, he's gonna be like a Jedi like stormtrooper, and they even put him on the posters. I remember with the lightsaber in his hands, you're like, oh shit, this guy's fucking, he's gonna be a Jedi. But I think we all knew in the back of our minds, like, well, it's gonna be Rey. Like, she's already done so much in this movie. Like, it's gonna be Rey. Like, she's gonna be the real like Jedi here. I just didn't know how. So I will say at the very end, I do love when he fought Kylo Ren, gets like his back slashed up, and then Kylo tries to grab the lightsaber and just flies right past him, and she grabs it. Because I remember that moment in the first, like when you first see it, everybody's generally like, oh, like everybody was so fucking like hyped, like, oh shit, let's go, and that was actually genuinely cool. But then that fight kind of got a little too dragged out. Like I thought, like when they're just like sitting there and she had like her eyes closed, I'm like, he could just slice her right there. But okay. But overall, I like that scene, kind of that last little bit. And then I love Maz's castle. That's one of my favorite locations. And then it gets destroyed. But yeah, that's one of my favorite locations. Possibly in the whole sequel trilogy. That's really fucking cool. I like that place.
I liked how mysterious they made like Maz, like watching it now, because she's like the Yoda of basically this generation. She's mysterious. We don't know what creature she is. She lived for 1,000 years, so it's like, all right, you're old, just as old as Yoda. So, and then she knows the Force, but she's not a Jedi. So that's a concept I really liked. Discovery. It's like, oh, people know the Force. They're not just Jedi or Sith. It's like, oh wow, that's like really interesting. Like how like Broom Boy at the end of Episode 8. It's like, we don't know what he could do, but he knows the Force, and he's like, what is this power? So I thought that was really cool, and I'm a little bummed because there's the deleted scene. The deleted scene of Maz. I think she does use the Force, like with the stormtroopers, and she crushes them. And I'm like, I want to see that. Like, and I feel like Favreau, Filoni, and hopefully future writers of Star Wars will expand more on the Force than just, oh, Jedi, good, Sith, bad. But it's like, no, there's people that maybe discover it and they're like, what is this? I don't know what the hell this is. I don't why? So it's like, I want to see that, like someone just learning about it, but not like going to be in a cult. It's like, they can probably be like, oh yeah, I'm a nice guy, but I could be an asshole at the same time. Like, oh, I will help you. Like, I'll save that person like from falling. But hey, if you're a prick to me, I'm going to maybe, I don't know, push you off a cliff or something. I don't know.
I mean, we talk about that a lot. Like, there could be, there's whole cultures, you know, that can use the Force and not be Jedi or Sith. And we'd love to see that. Like the Night Sisters or something, you know? We just love to see that kind of thing in a film or TV show. We'll see. Who knows?
But no, there's definitely a lot to love about the film. I think the best takeaway, like I said, is just honestly the big, great development of characters and stuff. And going back to Takodana, it is one of my favorite places. I really love how they gave the cantina like a new version of the cantina, and I like the music and the kind of cool characters. And I know that you kind of had an issue with like that one like First Order like person. I kind of saw her, and I get what you meant, like how they kind of hyped her up and they even gave her like a little book, like, hey, figure out this. Like, okay, but it doesn't pan out. But I kind of saw her as like that, like the black long-nosed character from A New Hope that was just like telling the stormtroopers, wait, 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 wait.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You saw her as kind of like that. I think with The Force Awakens, it's kind of, it's not, it's just, I feel weird about it. It's like, it feels like certain things should have happened with like the setups that they did. And I know it's not particularly The Force Awakens, but it's like, there's a lot of setups and some of them kind of crisscross, so you don't know what's going to happen. I think JJ probably did that to leave it a little open, but it kind of hurts going on because I felt that Han Solo almost knew who Rey was, which was kind of like what my theory was for this entire thing, was that maybe it was like one good twin, one bad one, and like they sent Rey away thinking she was the bad one, so they bet on the wrong pony, and they sent her away and then kept Kylo, but he ended up being the fucked up one. Like, it felt like it would be something like that, like watching the film over. So it's just kind of those things where it's like there's certain setups that don't pay off. And like with Luke's saber, we don't really know what happens to it, but we have to read a comic about it, and there's just a lot of good setups that don't pay off. So the good thing of how it's set up, but it's bad and it never pays off, I guess.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, though. I remember after that movie came out, people being very confused as to whether or not Han knew her or not, because it wasn't really clear. Because the way he asked her was kind of like, "Where did you say you're from?" Like, just kind of like maybe he knows, but like we're not sure. But I now realize that it was just so they can kind of like the whole conversation that they had and like him wanting to come with them and stuff was just so they could set up for like when he, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Force Awakens somehow, dies at the end due to like Kylo. And yeah, but you're right. Like there was a few like kind of plot threads that he put in there that I don't know if it's just like he wanted to purposely leave open, for the next director, possibly. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like some of these things he was like, I'm not going to put too much detail because I know that this next director is probably going to come up with their own things for this, and I think that's essentially like what the most of their plan was just kind of like, we're gonna make this movie, it should be pretty good, we're gonna make some money, make a pretty like good story, but like leave some stuff open so that the next person we bring in kind of finish that. I honestly think that they're trying to follow the original trilogy thing, but it doesn't work because this is an already established property, like we said. So that's just the awkward thing. There's some things in there that are like left open that you would have liked to see resolved. And I think a couple things that probably could have been resolved in that movie, but he like purposely didn't because it's like, oh, there's gonna be another one. But yeah, that kind of left us with more questions after the next one. So yeah.
In all honesty, I don't remember like when people were like, "Who is Rey? Is she a Kenobi? Is she a Solo? Or is she a Skywalker?" Like, I remember thinking like, "All right, she's Force sensitive somehow. She's powerful, maybe matching like Kylo." And I was thinking maybe she is a daughter of Luke. That was kind of like my speculation. Solo was my next one, thinking, okay, maybe they are brother and sister, and maybe Kylo was gonna kill her or something as a baby or whatever. So that was kind of like, I think that was my best bet, thinking, I think she is a Solo. But then I'm like, well, Skywalker would make kind of sense. And then that bottom of my list was like, or she's just someone that's like how during the reign of the Empire, there's a Force sensitive person, we gotta kill him. So maybe that's what Kylo was doing too. It's like, oh, I destroyed the temple, and I have to get rid of everybody that's Force sensitive. So thinking that would have been like, that was a mystery I kept thinking of, like, okay, is it going this way? And then another one I thought that was cool, going back to Maz Kanata's Saito Ithano's character, like the pirate gang. I'm like, okay, these guys, I mean, I know they made action figures and Funko Pops of them, and I'm like, all right, he looks cool, but whatever. And then there was actually a book on him, and he was the more interesting character than that one girl that calls up the Empire. Like, he looked cool, and his friend was cool, and like, they're pirates. I'm like, okay, what are they going to do? And I did read a little bit of the book, well, just like a summary of it. And then I actually learned a clone trooper is with them. I was like, hold up, what? And it was in Count Dooku's Treasure, and I think that book was before Force Awakens, or it was like Journey to the Force Awakens or something. And I thought that was like one of my favorite ones I was reading, because I have the books of Journey to the Force Awakens. I like Han Solo's, that was good. It was all right. Luke's is my favorite. Leia, I need to get. I still haven't read it. And then the Before the Awakening with Finn, Rey, and Kylo, or Finn, Rey, and Poe. I thought that was cool. And then reading about that one, I'm like, ooh. So with the opportunities, like, okay, here's pirates. That's it. What are they? I want to know. Give me more. Because it's like, oh, I would love to see like, I don't know, like an animated episode or even live action, like Tamora Morrison as a clone with the pirate gang and just doing pirate things. Just going to adventures, going to random planets, running away from gangs, Sith artifacts, Jedi artifacts. It's like, it is open for possibilities for other things too. And even like, so I know Joey and I, we would talk about, there's 32 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. How are you going to fill it? And we've only gotten like a handful of things, which I was like iffy with. Like, I know Resistance was before that, but I didn't like it. I watched it and I'm just like, not my style. Just not my style. For kids, I get it. It is for kids. It is definitely for kids. So if your kids love it, go for it. Some of the Shattered Empire, I know that was like after. Not bad. I try to get into, what was it? So the first of the canon books, Star Wars Aftermath.
Oh,
I think it was. I know everyone's like, the first one sucked, and then 2 and 3 are better. But it's like, oh man, I don't want to have to deal with crappy first and then to get through the others. But they're still so close in between the Return of the Jedi. And I know Mandalorian, same thing, but this Mandalorian, I love it. 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Now it's like, okay, let's get past that. Let's get like 10, 15 years. Because the comic is, the Kylo Ren one's the only one that I know that's like, touches when he's like a kid and then teenager and then maybe like 3-4 years before Force Awakens when he becomes Kylo. So it's like, okay, Disney, let's do this. If they don't want to go back to that, it's like, all right, there's maybe a comic book writer, maybe a author can do it. Like, I trust Charles Soule. Like, he's my favorite of the newer Disney canons and other comics he's done. I would love to see him do a book on like what's going on, the First Order, or maybe like what Luke was doing for the Jedi, and he's like, oh, this is how I was doing it. Like, I would like to see him write a book on that or something, just a little something, you know? Because it's like there's a lot of history there. What can we do?
Yeah, no, there's a lot that they can explore, and I think we talked about this before. We don't think that it will. I don't think it'll help the sequel trilogy in the way it helped the prequel trilogy, but I think it'll help a little bit if they have just so many other materials. Either like they can't. We talked about last episode or the episode before that. They can't really do it during this because it's only like a year and a half or something between all these movies. But they can do before, maybe a little bit after. But I don't know about after because they probably will at some point have plans to be like, oh, we're gonna do something after this. I don't know, but definitely before. There's a lot they can cover there. So I think that's probably their best bet right now. Is just kind of stuff leading up to Force Awakens and explaining some of these other characters. Like, I wouldn't even have thought that the clone trooper would be alive at this point still. You think that they'll all be like dead or something. So yeah, that's like the kind of shit that we want to explore, that we want to know. So yeah, that's interesting that you said that. And also, Tamar Morrison, there's so many characters he can play in this universe. Like, so many he can still play. It's crazy.
Just Echo. But
He can have a show where he plays all of them.
that'd be awesome. Like live action Clone Wars. Yeah, it's just hard talking about this film just because I know what it's ultimately gonna become. And I think if there's gonna be anything made in between, I could give a fuck less about the First Order anymore because it just seems like it came and went so quickly, and I don't have any investment of how it got created. I just want to see a good Luke Skywalker. DH Mark Hamill, give him his due props. Have Luke's Jedi Academy, and I want to see him do something good. I feel like if you have a good enough story, you have the de-aging technology, go for it. Allow Mark Hamill, give him his due credit because give him the Luke that he deserved to play. That's my whole thing. And do it before he becomes too old to do it. I mean, shit, they're going to do Indiana Jones 5, they say, with Harrison Ford. So give it to Mark Hamill. I think he would be on board if, like, they gave him a good enough story. I think he would pick it up and not be so bitter. Give it to someone who deserves to write Star Wars and knows what we want. Yeah, and it's kind of like I don't really want episode 10 through 12 because I don't really think there's anything you can do to save what we got unless you have Rey and Finn side by side creating an awesome Jedi Academy together, like what probably should have happened in 9. I think the worst thing is not doing time jumps like the other trilogies did. It allows breathing room and allows the characters to grow naturally because, oh, this is like 5 years after. Okay, there's a good, point in time where we can explain stuff or people will pick up that she started a Jedi Academy. Not, oh, all right, we got to run away from what we just came from. And then, oh, it's been a year, so everything's just going to fall apart. It made no sense. But I think just to wrap this whole thing up, let's finish off with like our top 3 worst and top 3 good things about the Force Awakens.
All right. I guess I'll start. I'll do, let's see, top 3 worst things to me to say. I mean, Starkiller Base was like cool, but not really needed. I would say some of the lines like we talked about. I think the comedy worked the best in Force Awakens, but was still more like Disney New Era, kind of like Marvel, than it was like Star Wars that we knew before. And I guess some people would say that like the prequels were a little bit less humorous, but they still had humor, and it was still closer to me the original trilogy than these. And then I'll say because this always just disappoints me, the teasing of the Knights of Ren, and it's almost every movie, but just the teasing Knights of Ren, not being able to actually see them like do anything really. Like, yeah, it's always disappointing. And top three best, I mean, I'll just say top three best, Ray, Poe, and Finn, because this is like where we see their characters at their best, in my opinion, in all of this whole trilogy. So that's just me.
No.
I'll start with worst. The first one I guess I can complain was, to me, I felt like there was a lack of, like, I know it was trying to be its own separate thing, but like my favorite thing about the prequels and the originals was there were aliens that were the same. You know, like you would still see some Rhodians, you'd see some Twi'leks, but they introduced new creatures. With this one, the only recognizable ones were Chewie and Nien Nub, a Sullustan and a Wookiee. It's like everybody else is new, which I'm all for, but it's kind of like, you would think there'd be like maybe a Jawa on Jakku. Maybe there would have been, I don't know,
Sand
Rhodian
people.
on Takadana. Yeah, like Tusken Raider, or
Mhm.
at least like a familiar of creature in Star Wars. I mean, again, I liked that they made new aliens, but I always loved how to stay connected with each one, because I know Force Awakens was like, we're not affiliated with the prequels, we're getting away from it. It's like, but I love the
Mhm.
aliens. Like I would have been down for like an Aqualish, like on Takodana, or um freaking Mon Calamarian, or actually, well, Admiral Akbar, they had him, but you know what I mean. It's like those guys. So that was like my gripe with that. Not enough original familiar characters. Knights of Ren, yeah, that's like I wanted more of them. And then I can't think of a third one for worst. Those are my mini two. But the best I will say is the bromance between Poe and Finn. I was like, I know everyone was kind of shipping them. To me, I was like, I don't see it. I just see two dudes like, yo, we bros. It's like, we connect. Hey, we connect. It's like, let's do it, man. I'm like, that is awesome. Friendship. That's so cool. So that's my best. Um, I guess like bringing back everybody, you know, like Han Solo, like and Chewie and Leia, and just seeing them together. Mark Hamill. I mean, I wish Luke and Leia interacted, and Han too. So, and then just like just feeling that excitement again, just seeing like, ooh, like the lightsaber battles and the music, just hearing it, because I know that was my favorite part when in all of 7 Kylo tries to grab the lightsaber and then it just whoosh flashes past him. Rey catches it and it's the music
Mhm.
of the burning homestead when Luke goes back and discovers his parents are, or his aunt and uncle are dead, and Rey's just like, oh my god, I have the power. And that was like,
Also, because I didn't talk about it, Ray's music is fucking excellent. I mean, the music was like really
oh,
good,
hands
but her
down.
music is fucking excellent. And that very end part when she sees Luke and they like play that score and like builds, that is
Mhm.
fucking awesome. I remember I listened to that like 20,000 times after I like left that movie. That
Oh
is
yeah.
such a good fucking score. But yeah, sorry, go Joey.
Worst things for me, Star Killer Base. Unnecessary, didn't need it. Knights of Ren for sure was a disappointment. So that's kind of overall stuff. Just a lot of setups with no payoff. And then I really think what would have been cool, like I love that Rey gets a chance to fight, but I feel like it would have been better to have Luke be the one that pulls that saber out of the snow. Like to me, even Mark Hamill said when he read it, like he thought that was going to be him pulling out. And not that he said he preferred it, but he just said like I thought that was going to be me because it would make sense because I mean she has little intuitions about the Force, but it's kind of one of those weird things. The greatest thing for me was definitely character setups and the introduction of Rey. I still think is the best Star Wars character introduction ever. Like it's just so beautifully crafted, and to me, that's the tragedy of this trilogy. Is just there is no payoff for most of these characters, and it really kind of breaks my heart because you had the foundation for such a great story with all of them. Um, so, and I guess the other thing, as far as bad thing, real quick, is not reuniting the big three at any point. Like, to me, that should have been a no-brainer to have all three of them together. Um, you could have killed Han off maybe at some point, but I think it would have been nicer to have all three of them just have one good moment. Um, other good things. Oh, Poe Dameron, I love the guy. Like, I remember when I got the Battlefront game, and I was like, I'm fucking Poe Dameron, like the first one that they re-released, and I was like flying my X-wing, like, I'm fucking Poe Dameron. Like, it was the first time I really liked a Rebel pilot. Like, I thought Han Solo was cool, but he was never my cup of tea. It was always Luke. So I was like super into Poe Dameron, especially when he's like shooting the stormtroopers from up above, and like that was epic. Like, it was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Impossible, but it was awesome. So I was like, that's what I.
Football jammer.
But I just like that it seems like all the characters really meshed well overall. It's just tragedy what happened, but I think Force is definitely second best, arguably best film out of Disney era. So I think we'll wrap it up with there. Big thank you to Noah for joining us today. Thank you always to Will for putting all this shit together for us. It means the galaxy to me. So to everyone out there, may the force be with you.
Always.